What's going on, Ambitious Vets? Welcome to episode number 24 of the Ambitious Vet Show with 3 Bronze Star Army combat veteran and Vet to Biz Life founder, Dan Dwyer. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet. My name is Chris Hoffman, Marine combat veteran turned passion-driven entrepreneur. Now, guys, we are here to dive into the trenches with today's top-performing military veterans that were once warrior-made but are now passion-driven. Now, guys, as they share their stories, their failures, and their journeys of what it took, we just hope that this unlocks your secret formula to living a more impactful, meaningful, and top-performing civilian life. All right, so do you consider yourself a veteran that is getting out with a big vision, but is finding out very quickly that when you get out of the uniform, your credibility goes with it? Well, guys, you are not the only one. In the Veteran Empowerment Transition Group, we call that getting out, feeling like Clark Kent, and then figuring out what it takes to feel like you're making the impact that Superman does back when you felt like when you were in the uniform, right? So, guys, I want to give you a charge here to go and join Veteran Empowerment Transition, the Facebook group where we are creating a new breed of transitioning veterans. What does that mean? Well, it means being more resourceful. It means learning how to execute at the level and the velocity and the intensity that you executed on while you serve. Now, guys, one of the biggest problems that we're finding with people that are coming to the tribe is a high volume of people coming over there. But unless you actually answer the 3 questions to get inside the tribe, we're going to not allow you inside the group. One thing that comes with being an ambitious veteran is you've got to be a person that's willing to take action, willing to share how we can provide value to you. And if you're not willing to take the actions, get vulnerable, and answer those questions, then you're probably not the right fit for the group. So, guys, if you are interested in going in and being around a group with over 560 ambitious vets that are extreme action takers, executors, and are getting out there and just making it happen out of the uniform, I request that you go join the group, answer the questions, and come in and join us for free live interviews with top-performing military veterans that we repurpose here. I go in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. or have another influencer within the group spotlighted and inside the group, guys. Come and enjoy the content, but more importantly, come and build relationships with people like you that have big visions and are learning what it takes to execute on them. We'll see you there. Now it's time to introduce who I call the wisdom giver for the warriors. Now, Dan Dwyer is an Army combat veteran and 3 Bronze Star recipient who has served as a military strategist with the American Enterprise Institute, where he worked on plans from Iraq in 2006 to Yemen today. Of note, he was one of the principal architects of the surge plan for Iraq that was briefed to President George W. Bush. Today, as the founder of Vet to Biz Life, LLC, Dan is dedicated to the boots to business advancement of veteran entrepreneurs. Now, Dan is a graduate of both Indiana University and was the University of Louisville, I think I'm saying that right, Louisville, outstanding graduate student in their Department of Leadership, Foundations, and Human Resource Education. His other honors include the General Douglas MacArthur Leadership Award, 2 Draper Leadership Awards, and 3 Bronze Star Medal winner, as I've already mentioned before. But guys, I just want you guys to get a clear vision of who Dan Dwyer is for me. Now, Dan is a mentor to me over the past 18 months. I got the pleasure of meeting him on social media and then inviting him to the Military Infantry Conference last year in Dallas, Texas, and have been building a relationship with this man ever since. And every time I talk to him, he narrows probably at least 2 to 3 years in my execution on getting shit done. He has one of the biggest hearts in the world. And as I said before, he is the wisdom giver for warriors. So, guys, I'm excited to dive into this one where Dan just shares his wisdom after transitioning twice out of the Army after 20 years and 3 Bronze Stars later. He talks about how an ambitious vet can lead with the core competencies given and developed during time in service and create a high-performing life out of the uniform, guys. He speaks our language, and I'm excited to dive in. Let's go do it.
You there, brother?
I sure am, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely,
This
man.
has been about 6 months in the making, but we finally got our calendars to align.
Oh, I know,
Happy
man.
to be here.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you. I know we were trying to get you on the show probably around, like 6 months ago, And for some reason, we were just getting everything going, but I'm happy that we were able to make it happen, man. So, brother, I just want you to kind of fill the gaps in the introduction. Have them get to know Dan Dwyer for who you are outside of all those major accolades, man.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. You know, Dan Dwyer's a husband first, father second, veteran entrepreneur, military strategist, soldier. You know, your audience is the ambitious vet. I want to talk a little bit today about transitioning, briefly tell them my transition story because I did it twice.
Oh, wow.
And also kind of give them some counsel and hopefully some sage advice to help them go through what can be a very exciting time in their life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's all about how you look at it.
That's right.
100%. It's all about perspective. I love that. So, brother, I mean, tell us a little bit about your transition story. Tell us about the first one. I know you went through two. Tell us about the first one.
Yeah. So, as I've shared more lately, talking to people, I was adopted at birth. I have a fraternal twin brother who's serving in the Navy today. He's in his 34th year at the rank of captain. We were adopted at birth. Our adopted mother passed at a young age, and we were raised by our aunt and uncle in a very loving way. We're 92 and 88 today, respectively, been married over 67, 68 years.
Wow.
But, in the case of both Dave and I, we felt like they owed us nothing. So the military really truly became a launching pad or a means to the ends for both of us, right? And like all twins being compared and contrasted all the time, he chose Navy, I went Army, right? So, and that's okay. But my goal was always to use the education benefits, serve 4 years. I did so as a crypt analyst in military intelligence. So, a code breaker. I wanted to choose a job that would allow me to stretch my mind a little bit, right? During those 4 years between 84 and 88, I knocked out 2 years of college, and those were the days where online didn't exist. You had to have your butt in the seat, to make a difference. But I always felt like I was behind, right? So, so after 4 years, I ETS'd and went to Indiana University, and I was there 2 years, finished 2 years of school, got commissioned through their ROTC program, and then came back into the formation. So I knew as an MI enlisted soldier that I wanted to lead more soldiers in a combat arms way or formation. So I chose Armor Cavalry as the means to do so. And before you know it, 22 years of uniform service was gone. My plan was always to transition at the 20-year mark and stay for 20, but I stayed for 22 years because there was and still is a war going on. And I wanted to serve my last 2 years with then Colonel, now Lieutenant General, getting ready to retire, H.R. McMaster, who is President Trump's former national security advisor. I get to go see him retire on May 18th in D.C. I always define success in the military as not the rank or position you attain, but leaving with what I came in with, right? With the decision, it was a critical time where I was spending years at a time away from my wife and two impressionable young men who are now, as you alluded to, serving proudly in our Army today in their own right. But like most, I wasn't quite sure what I would do after transitioning, but I did know that I wanted to continue to shape lives like yours and others and contribute to our warfighters. So with the two pillars of clarity and competence, I remained confident to do whatever I wanted to do, really.
Nice. I love that, two pillars, competency and clarity. I love how you can break things down to where, people that are now on your level can understand it. I love it. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like two major transitions. I mean, I can definitely relate to on the fact of the upbringing of, dealing with kind of like a broken home and trying to figure out life at a young age and having to grow up at a young age.
Right.
And that's, as I shared on the show last week, is one of the primary reasons why I joined the Marine Corps was to discover what it took to actually gain masculinity, become a man, and all that. I think a lot of veterans are actually afraid to share that authentic of what they actually joined for. Because if I wouldn't have joined, I would have never, I would have stayed an alcoholic and I would have continued to chase women. That's what I would have done. And it had me get my shit together and develop leadership qualities, like you're saying, and discipline that allowed me to actually start learning what it took to thrive and build self-confidence. And it sounds like it did the same thing for you, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about what motivates people today, it's generally one of three things. One, money. Two, social and emotional, which you're really seeing more today than ever before. And then third, ideological, right? My reasons for joining the military, admittedly, were twofold. Ideological, obviously, to serve in uniform, because I always respected those who did, growing up in a post-Vietnam era, and then and Cold War. And then second, the monetary reason was really, that was a means to the ends for me to achieve my academic desires, right?
Yeah. It's a twofold. It helped you develop both like this internal confidence and, the internal, and then also the external. It had allowed you to actually discover, education, or where you could get actually out there and produce results out here. So it sounds like it was a win-win.
And that's really noteworthy today, Chris, being in our nation's longest war, 2002 Afghanistan, 2003 Iraq. These young men and women who join our ranks today are really doing it for the same reasons, ideological, and the educational benefits are so good today. So
yeah, absolutely. And I would just add to that, I mean, pretty much what the ambitious vet audience is, as you know, is like, these are young gunners that are getting out of the uniform, or even guys that are like 20 years in. They're just trying to figure out how to be Superman out of the uniform. A lot of these guys are getting out, discovering that they're Clark Kent, and they don't know how to become that noteworthy of a person out of the uniform. They go from a master sergeant or a gunny or a first sergeant and to like being a private out of the uniform. So it's just like, how do you become a noteworthy individual? Utilize the skills, these elite skills that you develop in the military, and actually transcribe those into the civilian world. And could you kind of dive into that and how you started discovering what fulfilled you and developing purpose after the uniform? Because like it said, I mean, one thing that anybody that's watching this, I mean, we got Sean Douglas, we got Bennett Tanton, we got Derek Morrell, we got some other high sharks. We got a few other people, guys.
Great guys.
Amazing guys. And, all of these guys know that are watching this is that you are, and you're military through and through. So how did you actually deal with that, being someone that was like extremely motivated, being, an Army guy and having all the accomplishments that you did? How did you transition out of that identity and actually create an identity out of the uniform?
Yeah, so I sought and found purpose, individuality, and fulfillment through four outlets, right? The first was the continued investment into our two sons, Gavin and Grant. I believe that our true legacy in life is not our job or vocation, but our children, right? So that's important. And the second was, and you alluded to it early in the introduction, less than 2 weeks after retiring in December of 2006, I found myself in DC working as a military strategist for the American Enterprise Institute, where I was able to work with an amazing team that developed the surge plan, providing a boots on the ground alternative to the way we were conducting combat operations from 2003 and 2006. I was able to do that because I was in a formation that planned and led successful counterinsurgency and area security operations. So that plan was briefed, as you said, to the 43rd President of the United States, and subsequently planned, prepared, and executed under the leadership of General Petraeus. They promoted him to 4 stars and put him in charge in February 2007. The rest is history. But I've had the pleasure of working as a strategist for other products that have affected our national interests because of that opportunity. The third thing was I've worked as a capability developer also, shaping requirements for platform and command post celestial mission command systems that today give the warfighter unprecedented situational awareness on the battlefield. Our listeners would know that system as originally as Blue Force Tracker, BFT. We accelerated a celestial capability to replace a terrestrial capability, and the war caused us to do that. But my purpose for really doing that was motivated for ideological reasons, right? I've always wanted to make sure that the software, the hardware, and the network engineers provide what the warfighter, what they really need versus what someone wearing a pocket protector, thinks he or she needs. And then lastly was I find purpose and fulfillment every day in my coaching of leaders, individuals, and teams. My coaching in both public and private organizations is specifically for individuals and organizations who are committed to dramatically and transforming the way they lead, the way their organizations perform, and business results. And those really are the four things in which I've been able to find purpose, individuality, and fulfillment, over the last 10 plus years.
Yeah, it's awesome that you identified it and been able to create such a successful career in coaching, because I know that you've worked and consulted with some of the top companies nationwide. I mean, you're telling me a few of them when we were in Dallas that you worked with. So, I mean, really what I get from you, man, is you are just an excellent strategist in allowing people to become top performers in whatever it is, whatever organization or whatever matters most to them. You just have a distinct listening and you know how to break it down to where they can implement it step by step. And I think anytime I'm overwhelmed with, if it's the ebook launch that I'm dealing with right now or whatever it may be, you're always there to kind of walk it through step by step with your wisdom and your long-term experience of actually knowing what it takes to become a top performer. So
I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing that, brother. So I mean, with you, I mean, right now, what do you, as an ambitious vet out of the uniform, really creating some awesome results for out of the uniform? I mean, what would you say is the most powerful and why? Resources or being resourceful, and why?
Well, of course, as a retiree versus a first termer or a mid termer, service member transitioning, there's a difference in terms of resources, right? However, when I took off the uniform, I've always felt that the Army and I were all square, right? I earned good wages for my performance, great medical benefits, met lifelong friends, have a decent pension. So I've always felt that the Army owes me nothing, nor am I entitled of anything else, right?
It's huge. It's big.
And that is huge today because for all the right reasons, our society has treated our service members with the respect that they truly deserve. Mm. But I really think, in comparison to our Vietnam veterans who weren't welcomed home like we have been, right? But I still think that once you transition, your level of success is going to be largely dependent on your ability to exercise that energy, drive, and initiative. In your terms, be that ambitious vet with no entitlement. You have to earn it. They don't know your past. They're only worried about your present and your future. So all said, I'm a firm believer in being resourceful as well. One area where service members can be resourceful is the accumulation of accrued leave, right? Although deployments and war helped me to do so, I had 90 days of terminal leave saved up or 3 months pay. You may have to, if you make that decision to transition, you may have to tell your family that you can't come home over the holidays. You may have to make sacrifices, but if your plan is to take off the uniform and transition, they'll understand that. And you'll create more margin for both finding a job, being better resourced, and unless you're transitioning into a government service job, in many cases, you may be able to double dip while starting your new life. I certainly did.
Wow. That's a great strategy. I mean, I wish I would have built up some terminal leave to go on. I mean, thankfully, I just hustled and grinded and made it work when I got out. But I mean, wow, that's a really good strategy as far as building up terminal leave and actually, utilizing that to get out early, still getting paid from the military, but still utilizing that income while double dipping, like you said, and utilize resources that are out there. Me, I went to the unemployment line, took workshops and stuff like that, and got a job at 24-Hour Fitness the day after I walked out of the uniform. But that is so huge. And I think entitlement is one of the biggest topics that are out there with guys and gals that are getting out of the uniform, is they want to live in their glory days and they don't realize that their glory days are actually still in front of them.
But I'll tell you, Chris, what is different today than 10 years ago when I took off the uniform is I am totally impressed at the number of service members who are starting their own side hustle, if you will, while they're in uniform. People like Sean Douglas, who you mentioned earlier.
Yep.
D'Inocio. There are so many. Marky and Six, right?
Yep. Good friend of ours.
Yeah, these people are rocking it, and I have no reason to believe that they won't continue to do so. I never thought about that in uniform, but today certainly the capabilities, the technology certainly allows us to do that. The other audience that's really doing well is the military spouse entrepreneurs. I cross both lines. I don't try to stay in just a veteran entrepreneur space. The military spouse entrepreneurs are absolutely killing it today because they've broken the code and they've figured out that they can work from anywhere and be successful. In many cases, they're not necessarily outperforming their service members, but in some cases, they're probably bringing home more of the cash, right? So
yeah, they get more time. They get more time too because they got to learn. To me, military spouses have to learn to be resourceful because they're the ones moving around everywhere, and they got the time to. You got to develop a home-based business or something. I mean, that's good. That's good, brother.
And that's important. No, when you're talking about that ambitious vet, particularly for those who have formed a team, through marriage, they have to make sure that level of ambition kind of mirrors each other, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it matters a lot. So Rico Danielson just said, such great guys. Dan is an amazing person and Chris is great. Combined, you guys are killing it. Thank you for that. Rico is the author of The Rise of the Veteranpreneur, Fortitude and Grit. Guys, if you guys are not connected with him, get connected with him. Great guy, creating a huge movement to help veterans succeed as well. So
yeah, it's 10:30 East Coast. Why isn't he in the gym?
Yeah, man, come on. I saw how big he is. He's huge.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
He's got a presence, man.
Great guy.
All right, good, brother. So I want you to get vulnerable. I want you to get open. I want you to share one of your biggest failures whenever you got out of the uniform, what you learned from it.
Well, earlier I said I indicated that our true legacy in our life was our family, not our job. This mindset this wasn't always the case. I've developed this mindset through reflection and failure, right? Failing as a husband, failing as a parent. There were too many instances to count when I placed my own interest or my career interest or chasing what I wanted, in your words, while my wife and sons probably notably sacrificed, right? So guilty, perhaps, of having an undisciplined pursuit for more versus a disciplined pursuit for less. Through consistent priority management of myself, though, I've found that you can have what I call work-life integration or balance and live a more fruitful life, right? But that didn't come to me early on. I failed as a husband and a parent before that was very apparent. And I had the opportunity because, when it comes to leadership, I think the best way to learn leadership and entrepreneurship is to observe leaders and entrepreneurs in their natural habitat and determine those things you want to copy and emulate versus those things you certainly don't want to do. And I work for some senior leaders that today, after they've taken off the uniform, they have no relationship with their spouse or children because of the demands that they put on themselves. So that's probably my biggest failures.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of us, man. I think one of the biggest things I dealt with when I got out of the uniform too is the guilt and shame of going 4 years, because I was the 4 and outer that got out, and I always look back and damn, I had a great relationship with my younger siblings, and now as I've gotten out, it's rebuilding that trust because I really felt like I left them behind, and kind of just was okay, I got out of that broken home, and now it's the past 4 or 5 years. 5.5 years since I've been out of the uniform now, it's been me rebuilding that trust with them and understanding that brother went nowhere. So I definitely can I can definitely relate to that with the daily extremes of trying to be a Marine, and in my case, a Marine. So I want to dive into that just real quickly, and then we'll kind of dive into what you're doing with Vet to Biz Life and what you're doing for ambitious vets out there. I want to ask you, what was the aha moment that had you realize that you have to slow down, man? Because that's, as I've shared with you countless of times, I'll share it completely live here on the show, is I have a slow down and hurry up and wait problem. I don't like to wait. I have an impatient problem, and I want to already be where I want to be. And you were the one that consulted me into taking the sales trainer role that I currently have in my full-time job. And it just helped me really realize that, it is the compound effect that ultimately wins. And I want you to share your wisdom on what was that aha moment that had you realize that it is the slow and steady that win.
But I think you're talking about the lack of structure. A lot of veterans have, right? They complain about lack of structure, routine, accountability out of uniform, and how do you find that traction and rhythm? I don't need an organization like the Army to provide me structure, routine, and accountability.
Right.
I learned from my time in the military that I can do this personally through my own personal habits and removing, any dependencies of others. Admittedly, and we all should be, I'm better at structure, routine, and accountability today because of my military service, but I never looked for another organization to replace what the Army provided while out of uniform, right? And I think that's noteworthy because you're not going to find it necessarily unless you as a leader make it. And we can talk a little bit more about that as the conversation goes, especially for ambition vets and veteran entrepreneurs. If you want to look or have the organization that you left, no matter the service, because I bleed purple. I spent plenty of times in environments where all services were side by side. Then you've got to kind of build that as an ambitious vet. Don't assume you're going to fall into that in any organization while out of uniform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and thanks for keeping us on par with the questions, with the traction and rhythm. And man, just thanks for opening up your heart and really being vulnerable, Dan. I really appreciate it. So I want to ask you, because obviously you're a mentor and coach to veteran entrepreneurs now. Now, what was the power that you saw in investing into a mentor and coach, getting out of the uniform and stuff like that?
Well, if you think about it, if you're like me, you spend 22 years in the best leadership laboratory out there. My success in uniform was largely due to my ability to do a couple things that people talk about today, right? You grow up in the military and you learn task and purpose, right? Well, early on as a young company grade officer, I figured that I knew that I needed to reverse the narrative and start with purpose and why in order to empower people to gain consensus, to gain buy-in to whatever the tactical task is. I knew that if my soldiers and team members understood the purpose, then they would just simply amaze me with the way they performed the task or mission. But when it comes to investing in yourself and having a mentor or coach, I love this question because it speaks directly to who I am and what I do. Your ability to think clearly, make sound decisions, and grow as a person is critical to your success. Having a trusted advisor or mentor, as you suggest, or a personal coach who can offer you different ideas and perspectives for you and your organization can help you maximize your performance and demonstrate potential. And this doesn't happen unless you have powerful conversations where lives and organizations change.
So much wisdom in there, man. Golden grenades, as we call them here. Thanks for sharing that, brother. I don't think there's anything to add. Really, what I want to ask you, one of the biggest things that we as military guys and gals that are getting out of uniform deal with is what drives our daily behavior, which I'm sure you know that. And organizations, have values. Like the Marine Corps, it was honor, courage, and commitment, right? So I would ask you this question. What are like your values that you've developed or realized as you got out of the uniform to kind of drive you? How would you explain those?
Yeah. So core values, of course, as you're suggesting, influence how we view the world and how we interact with others. It's key that we understand our own core values. I'm actually, I shared this with our mastermind group last week. When we covered building your personal brand. But my 5 core values are authenticity, Go figure. Confidence, fire, integrity, and loyalty. Of course, integrity and loyalty are two of the Army's values, but I had values before I joined the Army, and I don't know if that's as much true today. In some cases, these ambitious vets may have not learned values until they showed up at Fort Benning, Lackland, Parris Island.
That was me.
Wherever, right?
Yeah.
But life is experiential, right? And you can learn values.
Yep.
Me, I mean, I talked about my loving aunt and uncle that raised us. We grew up in a value-based home, you know. My butt was in a pew on Sunday morning, no matter what my Saturday night looked like, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, others other than authenticity, you know, confidence, fire, integrity, and loyalty, it's something else that's important to me is meaning, you know, investing my time and talent into things and people that personally inspire me and the world. Sustainability is important. I would hope that that's important for ambitious vets too, you know, putting their efforts into things that will provide lasting positive change in the world. Vision, of course, if people spend any time with me, they know that I'm, you know, the past is prologue. I'm always looking forward, you know, creating the future by building things twice, you know, once with my vision and once with reality, you know, empowerment, right?
Yeah.
Giving others the confidence to learn, grow, and contribute to the world in sustainable ways. I think that's what separates the good leaders from the poor. And then lastly, and I'm not getting soft here, but love, you know, my passion and desire to treat people like fellow human beings. And I think that's all what we want and expect, especially our ambitious veterans who are taking off the uniform and transitioning in some exciting times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, how I teach in any of the programs that I teach is I teach that values are foundation to creating fruit out of the uniform. It's the driving force that drives you. So whenever you are feeling disempowered or whatever that may be,
right,
that you're disconnected from who you are as a human being. And I think the authenticity one's a huge one. And I learned that one the hard way. I used to be this super grandiose person, always thought I had to use big words. And it came to me in a lot of humbling failures that, you know, in a book called All You Can Do Is All You Can Do and All You Can Do Is Enough by Art Williams. That book said this, if just keep it simple for people to understand,
right?
Because when you keep it simple, they can understand it, right? And you should never try to be more than what you are. And people can understand when you're not being who you are. So authenticity is definitely huge. I feel like it's the number one thing that has us connect with another human being and has us not be viewed as perfect, but actually perfectly imperfect. So, I mean, I love the authenticity one. That's one of my number ones as well. And that's why a lot of people like this show is because it's super authentic, right? So that's awesome. So, yeah, brother, I want to dive into what are the 3 golden grenades you want to drop into any ambitious vet that would impact them immediately and them being able to thrive more out of the uniform? What would be 3 golden grenades you drop in here?
Yeah, so the first one would be build a solid LinkedIn presence. You know, LinkedIn is as old as 2003, right? Well, 2003 to 2006, I was in Iraq. I was either on the Iraqi-Syrian border or I was up north in Talafar. So building a solid LinkedIn presence was the last of my concerns, right? But build a solid LinkedIn presence to connect with people while telling them what you want to do next. And that's what many of our ambitious veterans fail to do. Leaders want to support your efforts. I mean, when I was in uniform, I would walk around and I'd have career conversations with soldiers and I'd ask them, you know, what do you want to do in life? What do you want to do next? And I wasn't so naive to think that their ambitions mirrored mine, but I would ask that question so that I could figure out a way to support what they wanted to do in life. And if I couldn't do it, I'd use my network to do so. And the majority of today's service members are not on LinkedIn. You know, long gone are the days where people can submit a digital resume and expect a lot of action. It's no longer who you know, but who knows you. So if I'm interested in Chris Hoffman, I'm going to go on LinkedIn and I'm going to look at all those ambitious vets' first connections of his, and I'm going to have conversations with those ambitious vets about Chris Hoffman before I even talk to Chris Hoffman. It's just the way of the world. The second thing is be a realist in that your first opportunity out of uniform may not be the be all end all, right? If you've not saved money or have the benefit of a retirement paycheck, you may have to start out at an entry level position or take a job that serves as a bridging opportunity, right, to doing what you really want to do. Again, don't wear the entitled shirt. Do the work. For those of you who are connected with me on social media, you know that I often post social images. And today's quote was, "Life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how I react to that." Both Charles Swindoll and former football coach Lou Holtz said that to be true. Now, you can live a very successful life and transition well with a positive attitude. And typically, because I spend equal amount of time in the corporate world, veterans are outperforming others because of their time management, their energy, drive, initiative, and discipline that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
The third thing would be just have a plan, right? If it's using your education benefits and going to school, then great. That's a pretty well-defined plan. Transitioning out of the military and becoming a full-time student, the ambitious vet will be a better manager of time. You're going to have more time than you know what to do with, right? At least I did. I knew when I transitioned out, I was always at the gym, at the library, or running, because there was so much time, because you spend X number of years with every minute of your day being accounted for. Right. But I would tell them, given the changing situation, today's dynamics, if you can, keep working and building experiences to separate you from everyone else that's going to school today. That's important. Now, if not school, have a plan that involves something other than moving back home and sitting on the couch. I always told my officers and my non-commissioned officers that whether our teammates serve one day or 20 years in uniform, we have a responsibility to give back to society decent citizens, right? So ambitious vets are those decent citizens that have to carry the torch into the workforce going forward. Those are my three.
Perfect. That was great, brother. That's tons of golden grenades there. And really, yeah, I mean, we can't be ambitious vets getting out of the uniform, leaning on government benefits and asking, what can you do for me? We got to lead with, and I'm huge in the intentionality of we still got to figure out how we can serve the civilian world when we get out, because a lot of them have kind of forgotten about us as we get out, and they see us as, oh, a veteran, that's cute, they've done their thing, and get your free lunch. But no, I mean, we can really get out and create some damage. I think, I'm gonna share openly right here live, is that one of the biggest things I dealt with when I got out was cognitive behavioral therapy for 6 months, dealing with my combat deployment in Afghanistan as a 240 Bravo gunner. And what I realized out of that experience is it had me be a label versus me actually really doing the cognitive work to discover who I was. And, through a lot of personal and professional development and surrounding myself with mentors like yourself to have me see that I'm not post-traumatic stress or this generalized anxiety disorder, as a therapist would call it. And I actually have freedom to be outside of that label. I think it allows us as ambitious vets to rediscover what's possible when we actually are surrounding with veterans that are actually out, not leaning on the benefits, but really making it thrive. And that's why this show exists. That's why your podcast exists, to inspire ambitious vets to really think out of the box and realize that we are veterans that outperform civilians. We are initiative. We are strong, and united together, we're even stronger. And the brotherhood and the sisterhood isn't dead out of the uniform, right? It is still steaming and burning. But you guys got to bring it to you.
All said, though, Chris,
I'm
closing any military civilian divide, right?
Yep.
Being a visionary, I think that's going to be part of my charter in the next couple of years, going inside of both corporate and veteran entrepreneur business spaces, is that I'm a strong advocate, much like I bleed purple, and I'm not biased towards any service. In fact, I told my boys, I'll pay for school, but I'm not going to subsidize stupidity. And if you choose a service, I'm not forcing you in any way. But same thing with the military civilian divide. It's so important for the health of our nation, from a business standpoint and otherwise, that we do not have a we-they continuum. Some veteran audiences promote that. I'm certainly not one of them. I'm all about closing those gaps.
Good. Yeah, I appreciate you voicing up and sharing that. And brother, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of promote what you're doing with Vet to Biz Life. You got a great podcast, successful podcast that you've had, tremendous amount of military influencers on. You've had Daniel Ulrich from Grunt Style on it. I mean, you've had the founder of Bottle Breacher on there. I mean, you've had some influential people inside that podcast. Can you tell the ambitious vets kind of what you're creating and kind of your vision moving forward?
I'll tell you what, the good thing about those guys, though, is they give back to anybody who has a podcast. Okay. So that's not really attributed to me. That's really attributed to them. They're great veterans. They're great entrepreneurs, and we vote with our feet every day. And I'm very thankful that people like them are stand up and they vote with their feet and give their time to people like myself, yourself, Chris, and others, right? So Vet to Biz Life, as you ask, is dedicated to the boots to business advancement of today's veteran entrepreneurs. I'm personally dedicated to, at least in the case of our veteran entrepreneurs, reversing that trend of 9 out of 10 startups failing. I'm also dedicated in growing the number, which today is less than 5% of veterans who start their own business ventures. And that's for many reasons, right? It was a clip of like 49.5%, almost 50% after World War II, but there was no Amazon, there was no Lowe's, there was no Home Depot, Brakes Plus. So the challenges for today's veterans are unique. However, it's the same that it's ever been in terms of identifying a solution to somebody's problem or a response to pain points that make the very best business solutions. I do this through my coaching in areas related to leadership development, performance improvement, and business acumen development. So from a leadership development standpoint, I recognize that you're going to take off the uniform, ambitious vet, with a certain degree of leadership, right? However, depending on the level in which you operated at, tactical, operational, or strategic, your experiences will have been different, and your ability to develop as a leader needs to continue, throughout life. So, especially as a ambitious vet or a potential business owner, performance improvement is one of my areas of expertise. It never amazed me how in the military we'd throw retraining at a problem when it was probably a performance improvement problem. The skills, knowledges, and abilities were there, but yet the leaders weren't articulating the mission, the vision, the goals and objectives in a way that caused a performance issue, right? So I really get at that in organizations and business acumen development, right? I recognize, and I used these 3 words earlier, and I continue to use them. No matter how much energy, drive, and initiative you have as an ambitious vet taking off the uniform, unless you had a very unique job in the military, the business acumen is not always going to be there. And if you want to be successful, then you need to get your hands around human capital management, technology management, financial management, and in order to be successful. I do this through the Vet to Biz Life podcast, as you suggest, where I interview the most inspiring veteran entrepreneurs. I share their stories, experiences, successes, and challenges to improve the personal and business lives of others. That's very intentional. The last thing I would share with you, Chris, is nobody's coming. What the hell does Dan mean by nobody's coming? Remember in the Westerns, the Indians would come, or in the Civil War, the cavalry would come to rescue others. As you look over my shoulder, you see a painting by Mort Kunstler that had never been captured before. On July 3rd, 1863, on the Eastern Cavalry Field of Gettysburg, George Armstrong Custer and Wade Hampton had a charge. trust me, coming from a cavalryman, right?
Yeah.
There's no cavalry. Okay. As ambitious veterans or veteran entrepreneurs, you are your own cavalry. Nobody's coming. So if you don't take care of your business, if you don't reach out to Dan Dwyer, Chris Hoffman, or someone else and develop yourself, dig yourself out of that hole, you're not getting out of that hole. Nobody's coming to throw you a saber or a rope. So for the first time, I'm really realizing that, and I want to share that tip to our veterans.
No, that's awesome, brother. Thanks for that. And I think that's a huge awakening that, you got to get out there and charge. You got to use the initiative. You got to create traction. And there's a good saying that I heard recently is that, when you're on fire, people come and watch, right? Power and attention follow action. You've got to be in action. You've got to be creating results. And if you're not creating results, like you said, you got to get down to, okay, what are the skill sets? What are something I got to develop? So just thank you for that, brother. Thank you for that. And brother, where can they go and find out more about you?
You can connect with me at dan@vet2bizlife.com. Of course, my website is the same, vet2bizlife.com. The podcast is you can find it on iTunes if you're an Apple user, or now it's Apple Music. If you're an iOS user, Google Play. If you're an Android user, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or my website. It's vet2bizlife.com/podcast. Facebook, of course, the same, facebook.com/vet2bizlife. Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Dan Dwyer _, Twitter, Dan Dwyer _, LinkedIn, Dan Dwyer Vet2Biz Life. Those are all the social media outlets that I'm on.
That's it?
Yeah, I'm not a Snapchatter, and
I'm just kidding. You're everywhere, brother. I mean, you're everywhere. You're omnipresent.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And my greatest following is LinkedIn. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. That's where I create most of my business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure with your professionalism, that's where your audience is. So good. So guys, I really just want, before I let the audience go, I just want to acknowledge you, Dan. I mean, who you are for the veteran community is you're someone that comes in and brings a tremendous amount of wisdom to our community of aspiring, ambitious vets, not only us, but young entrepreneurs that are veterans, figuring out how do we figure this battlefield out.
Yeah.
Right. You really help us out. If it's anyone from Charlinda Scales from Mud Sauce, if it's anybody from Markey and Sitch, the real estate investor, Marine, I mean, you really are helping us that have this tremendous amount of fiery passion to become successful out of uniform. You're really helping us bridge the gap with your failures, and for you to already take your coaching company that you've had on the side for so many years and are successful at and bring that to the veteran community. I want to acknowledge you for that, man, because every time I'm around you, I get like just an incredible light bulb moment that has me narrow another time frame of getting something done a lot quicker than I ever thought I could, just from your wisdom. So for that, brother, just thank you for who you are for the entrepreneur veteran community. And just thanks for joining the Ambitious Vet Show.
Well, I appreciate that, Chris, and I appreciate you having me on. And when you made those comments, it made me think of one thing more for our ambitious vets out there, and that is do what you want to do in life, follow your passion in life or passions as early in life as possible. Too many of us spend X number of years doing what we have to do versus what we want to do. And today, if you can do what you want to do versus what you have to do, you're just going to live a so much more fulfilling life. Thank you for what you're doing. You're always on my radar. You will continue to be. I picked up on your energy and your attitude and your positivity early on, and only the very best success for you in vet training and coaching. I know you'll do well. Things don't happen as fast as we want them to, and that's okay. You've got to treat it like a marathon, not a sprint. But one of the reasons, and you shared this, why I recommended that you take that training job with your company, is there's going to be so many carryovers from that in your coaching and in your business and the things you love to do. So thank you for having me on. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for that.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed episode number 24 with Dan Dwyer. Now, guys, as always, I want to kind of go ahead and dive into some afterthought of this interview, as this was recorded back May 3rd live inside the Veteran Empowerment Transition Tribe. And as I said before, we go ahead and repurpose this. But guys, one of the biggest things that stood out to me going back and listening to this today was the fact that him saying reverse the narrative of task and purpose. We've all heard of that huge online news platform and a blogging site, Task and Purpose. Well, he says to actually reverse the narrative to purpose, then task, and then you'll find extraordinary results out of the uniform. So guys, I just want to kind of throw some salt on top of that steak and talk about the 3 things I want you guys to take action on in the next 7 days inside your life. If it's journaling this, if it's thinking about it on a long hike, like sometimes I do every Sunday morning up in Northern California. Guys, but here's the thing. Define your purpose to actually align tasks along with that purpose to create a fulfilling life out of the uniform. I want you guys to focus on 3 things. 1, find what you love. That's what ignites the passion inside your heart. 2, find the problem you're not okay with in the world, right? Find the problem that you want to solve in the world. 3, find where your talents and gifts fit into all of that. See, that comes and that encircles everything, right? It's a closed loop system. Find what you love, find the problem you're not okay with, and find where your talents and gifts fit in around that, and then start creating task around that. Hence, purpose, then task, and then creating extraordinary results out of the uniform. So guys, as always, go ahead and rate, review the podcast. The more you do that, the more ambitious vets we reach, the more ambitious vets go to the Veteran Empowerment Transition Facebook group, and the more opportunity for you to network with top performers out of the uniform. As always, I want you guys to give us feedback. Email me directly at choffman@vettrainingcoaching.com. That's 2 F's as in Fox, and 2 N's as in Nigel, choffman@vettrainingcoaching.com. Would love to hear bad, good, or rooms for improvement so we can get out there and allow you guys to thrive. Now, guys, as we always in this show, we already know that you're warrior made, but to become passion driven, go in and execute on one golden grenade you got from this interview. And I promise you, the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, next 5 years, doesn't matter how long it takes. As Dan Dwyer said, it's a marathon, not a race. You will be living that top performing civilian life. Let's go get it.